Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BjjBrick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 179 of the BjjBrick Podcast. My name's Gary, and I'm here with Byron today. How are you, Byron?
Gary, I'm doing great. I'm really excited about today's episode, my friend.
Byron, what do we have on tap for today's episode? And when I say tap, I mean it with no pun intended.
Gary, we have none other than a legend in our sport and martial art. Pedro Sauer is on the show this week.
Man, I just remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, Pedro was one person who was already in the United States that, I know myself and a lot of people looked up to. And I just remember just watching in awe as there was a video of him of cleaning house against Mr. Utah there. So I remember that, and I just remember the big size difference, and I remember the dismantling by Pedro Sauer, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to stick with jiu-jitsu, seeing guys like Pedro Sauer and Hoist Gracie take care of bigger people and with pure jiu-jitsu, and it was just so fun to watch.
Yeah, we talk about that a little bit during the interview. I'll put a link to that particular video in the show notes. It's fun to watch. It's kind of almost a video breakdown before video breakdowns were a thing, where there's somebody commentating about what's happening and how really Pedro's taking no damage by this beast of a person and is just trying to kill him. And Pedro, he hangs out and does his thing and maintains control and does very well. So check out that video. Also, during the interview, Pedro Sauer, and we're also joined by past guest Brent Lillard. He was on the show a while back, and he helped kind of set this whole thing up. And I asked if he wanted to jump on here with us, and he said yes, because him and Pedro Sauer are pretty good friends, and they train quite a bit together. So it's just good to get that kind of dynamic involved in the interview as well.
So definitely do not tune away from this podcast, because we have Pedro Sauer and Brent Lillard coming up.
Yep, good times, my friend. Always good times.
Always good times. Hey, speaking of good times, you never want to miss the good times hanging out with Byron and myself. And so you don't miss those good times, make sure you get on the email list. We have a link to it on the show notes. Just put in your email, and each and every week we'll send you a copy of our show notes, and that way you'll never miss anything.
There we go. We like to keep it easy for you, and that's one way we can keep in touch with you. Keep it easy for us as well, I guess.
Yeah, well, we care more about ourselves, to be honest. So.
Make it easy for us. It's all automated on our end, so that's always easy. That makes it easy. We've got some good news. It's not exactly new news, but if you are fairly new to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've got something to help you out. It is an audiobook featuring yours truly, talking into the same exact mic I'm talking into right now. The audiobook is called Your First Year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It is about 2.5 hours long. There's 6 chapters in it, everything from finding the right gym, your first month of training, the benefits of jiu-jitsu, all the way up to tournaments and whether they're right for you and what to really expect during your first tournament, if that's something that you want to get into. It's okay if you don't, but that's just something that I know a lot of people during their first year really want to get out there and try it in a tournament setting. So help you kind of get some expectations and what's going to happen and how to get ready for that. So a lot going on there. The audiobook is $11.99, and that money goes to help support the show and the podcast and the website and everything we got going on our end of the telephone line here, Gary. So it means a lot to us every time we sell a book, and it also means a lot to us when we get that feedback saying that the book helped and it was either motivating or helped them get going or helped them stick to it during that first year of training. So check out the audiobook if it's something that would help you out. If you're in it and you're already in it for 8 years, you know what, the audiobook's really not going to be probably for you. But if you're, within that first year or so, you're thinking about training, you just can't quite, get motivated to actually do it, hopefully the audiobook will help and get you started the right path, my friends.
Yep, unless you've been doing it for 8 years and you have a skill level like I did after 8 years, then it would definitely help you. I was really skilled.
Nice, Gary.
Yeah, definitely. Byron, I think we should get on to the quote of the week.
All right, good to hear. Gary, we've got a quote from, we have a grappling legend on the show, and I figured we would get another legend from another sport and get them, we really can't get this person on the show. We can have a quote from them. So,
what sport? What are we talking about?
I think it's baseballs.
Oh, do we have Mike Socia again? I know we had him a couple weeks ago.
We did. Full confession here. I send Gary a little sheet of notes about what we're going to be covering this week, and has link to the article and quote. And sometimes Gary will send me a quote, sometimes he'll send me an article, whatever. I just kind of patch it all together. That way we're working with the same piece of digital paper here. And Gary's like, I think we use this quote, and I had to look it up, and sure enough, we used it like 3 weeks ago. So thank goodness for Gary catching that one. This one's from Babe Ruth.
Well, the good thing is that Mike Socia quote you must really like, because you now picked it out twice. But, hey, Byron, what does Babe Ruth have to say?
And I'm not 100% sure that we hadn't used this quote either.
Well,
but it's been a few weeks or probably a couple of years.
Yeah, this one actually relates to us, too, Babe Ruth. And the way it relates to us, we talk about the 7 degrees of BjjBrick podcast. So we had Will Horniff on the show, who played in the movie The Sandlot. And The Sandlot, they always talked about Babe Ruth.
Yes.
So, hey, this actually, that'd be 3 degrees of the BjjBrick.
And that's pretty good.
Yes.
We need that. He was a fun one to have on the show. One of the kids from the movie Sandlot. If you just go to the BjjBrick website and type in Will Horniff, he'll pop right up, and you can check out his interview. Who'd have think that he's now a black belt teaching jiu-jitsu and spreading the jiu-jitsu around. So that's really cool. But the Babe Ruth quote, it's hard to beat a person who never gives up. Man, that says a lot. You could take that like right now. You're facing an opponent and they're just not going to quit. We've all been there. You get tired. You kind of you go from that full speed mode that you're feeling good to where you kind of like back down a notch. Like, oh, I'm kind of getting tired. I'm kind of have that little self-doubt creep in, and that person, when that self-doubt, that tiredness creeps in, you become easier to beat. And so if that person, which is you or the other person, doesn't get that feeling, or maybe gets it way later than the opposition would, man, that is a tough person to beat.
Yeah, you're definitely there, Byron. But I was actually thinking of it kind of another way. A week or two ago, you posted a picture of your last day as a white belt. And it was a day that both me and you got promoted to blue belt. But there was an old-time picture, and me, you, and a whole bunch of all of our old-time training partners, we all got a kick out of seeing that picture back in, I think it was 2003, if I remember right. But the key was you put a caption on the picture, and you said, I always did 2 things, and one of them was you never quit. And I know you're talking about in the heat of a match, the guy who never quits. But I'm talking about, you never quit jiu-jitsu. You always showed up. Even if there's weeks where you could only make it 1 day a week. And I know I spent about a year where I could only make it 1 day a week. But, the key is never quit. What do they say? A black belt is a white belt who never quit. Just keep going, keep plugging away. We're going to learn stuff each and every time we get there. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be tragedies and stuff that happen in your life that put, roadblocks in your path. But if you don't quit, if you just keep training, some weeks you can't train as many as other weeks, but don't ever quit. Just keep going. You're going to get to that path. You're going to get to that end line. Or actually, there is no end line. We're always going to keep training, keep learning. But you will hit your goals. You'll smash your goals. You may not get to them as quick, but hey, it's not about dominoes delivered in 30 minutes. We want to enjoy the ride. We want to train jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Yeah, Gary, you took it to the next level. I kind of was looking at it the short-sighted way. I know you've got my back, my friend.
Oh, literally. Yep, I'm always trying to get your back.
And I definitely appreciate that. The person who doesn't quit, let's say, and I know that there's a few of you out there who are totally into jiu-jitsu. It's your thing for one reason or another. You busted elbow, work got a little bit overwhelming, and you had to take some time off. And now, the next thing you know, a year has gone by, and you're certainly not the obstacle that was once in front of you that kept you from winning that. So you feel like you've quit jiu-jitsu, but in reality, the day you go back, you just had a long break. You didn't actually, you took a break from jiu-jitsu. So you don't really quit until either, I guess, you sell your gi, which you always get a new gi, but I've had guys say, hey, I'll give you my gi, I'm done training. I don't want that gi. That gi should be in your closet, ready for you. Just when you get that idea, like, hey, I might come back. Or maybe I'll come back tonight. I want you to have that gi ready to go right there. But you don't quit until you're dead. You could quit training for years and years and decide to come back. And it was I took a kind of extended break. I wish I didn't, but today, right now, I'm training, and yes, I've had a white belt with 2 stripes on for a long time, but most of the time it was spent in the closet or in the gym bag, not getting any work. But now, today, the belt's back around my waist, and I'm working hard, and this is what I have to work with. So that person also, it's hard to get back in it. But that is one way you also don't quit, is when you return back to the mats.
Man, Byron, you gave a great piece of advice there. I know, our goal is to grow jiu-jitsu, and I never really thought of what you just said there. But you said, hey, you've seen when people, decide they're going to quit jiu-jitsu and they try to sell a gi or give you a gi and, normally at a good deal. Don't take that. Because you think about it, that guy's probably going to want to train, someday down the road. And we all want more and more people to train. We don't want people to stop. So let's just say I sold you my gi for $10, and you bought it for $10, Byron. And then 2 years down the road, I started thinking, hey, maybe I want to train again. And then the first thing that's going to pop into my head is, crap, I probably don't want to train because I have to buy a new gi. I don't want to spend, first of all, for my first month's dues and then a new gi, I'm putting a little bit of money into that, doubling my output. And, so I like that idea. Anytime somebody tries to sell me, well, they're probably not going to sell me a gi because they know I train mostly no gi. But, actually, I just like that idea. If somebody's trying to get rid of a gi because they're going to quit, don't buy it. Don't take it. Just say no. Yeah,
just say, no, I know you're going to come back to jiu-jitsu eventually, and I want that gi to be there for you when you do. Because there's X amount of hurdles in front of everybody that wants to return to the mat. Why making getting a new gi one of those hurdles,
Yeah.
Just let them keep that thing. If they, you can't stop them from giving it away, but hopefully, in that little encouragement, I know you're going to come back. Just keep it, man. You'll be back.
Well, let's think of ways, when they do try to keep giving it to you. We can, we can come up with some ways to change it. It's like, hey, Byron, I know I'm really not going to come back. Hey, here's my gi. And you're saying, no. I know you might come back. No, I'm not, Byron. Here, just take it. What you need to say at that point is like, hey, Jimmy, you never know how much these gis, come in handy in other things. Think of it. You have a Halloween costume every year. You don't have to go buy one. So that's one way you can get around that. So, make sure you practice that, when somebody's trying to give you a gi and remember that and bring that up.
There you go. Gary, you're always very creative with your different uses for a gi. From one legend, Babe Ruth, to a grappling legend, Pedro Sauer. This is going to be a good show. Also, guys, stick to the end of the show. We've got an article titled, What to Do When You Are the Worst Grappler on the Mat. That's going to be a good one to discuss. And the really big news is we have a new Mat Tales. And I know that is definitely a listener favorite thing that we have, a big segment that we have. So check out the new Mat Tales coming up after the interview.
Yep, I know people love Mat Tales, and a lot of people like to listen to it solo. But, hey, stay tuned because here comes Pedro Sauer.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
In an effort to blend traditional martial arts with BJJ, he was successful in breaking 5 cinder blocks with his triangle choke. He put Frankie Valli in a triangle, and he screamed for Sherry Baby. In an effort to fight crime, he likes to check in on Facebook when he is in a bad neighborhood.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BjjBrick Podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Pedro Sauer and a returning guest, Brent Lillard, to the BjjBrick Podcast. Welcome, my friends.
Thank you very much, man. Glad to be here, my friend.
So this is a three-way call, and we're all on here. We've got Brent on the show. He was recently in Brazil with Pedro Sauer. Is that correct, Brent?
That's correct. Yeah, we go down there every year. This was our fourth trip. Had a great time.
And so, Pedro, what's that like, having people come in and train with you?
Oh, it's great, man. We have a great environment in Brazil. We can stay up in the mountains, and it's just very nice, safe, beautiful weather all the time. It's like we stay up in the mountains, so it's raining. You're always in the jungle in the rainy season there. It is a great time to share jiu-jitsu and bring people from all over and mix with the Brazilians. Everybody's always welcome at the camp, so it's we had a good time there.
It sounds like a great time. Pedro, could you give us a little introduction about who you are, kind of a little bit of your own personal history about jiu-jitsu and what you're up to now?
I stopped training jiu-jitsu as a young kid. My parents used to be neighbors with Grandmaster Helio Gracie, and I got a chance to meet Rickson first, and he took me to the school. And after start training there, I was sold out right away. And I've been doing jiu-jitsu since in the early 70s, and never stopped. I pretty much train, put my gi on every day, and I still cannot help it to be curious and to always be on the mat. And one day that's not on the mat, I almost feel guilty. But yeah, it's a good time to always be on the mat sharing jiu-jitsu with everyone.
Yeah, that's a long history of jiu-jitsu. How does the belt system work after you get to black belt and you're there for so long?
Basically, if you are achieve a rank of a black belt and you don't stop training anymore, you stay active. Every 3 years you should get a stripe. Depends which organization you are. IBJJF now they're applying new pretty much rules. I try to follow Grandmaster Helio Gracie lineage and his guidelines. The early days it was 2 years that he was doing that, and basically you have to be 100% active. That means if you stop training for a month, you took a month of vacation, you start over again. That was his Grandmaster Helio's philosophy and methodology. So I try to follow the same way. I give a little bit lead. Of course, I understand that you might stop training here and there, but as long as you're contributing, you're helping other people to grow in the martial arts environment, and you contribute on the jiu-jitsu community, every 3 years you get a stripe. So that's how it goes.
And after a certain amount of stripes, your belt actually changes?
Yeah, basically when you get a 7th degree,
okay.
So 21 years later, when you get 7th degree, you get a core belt, and after that, it takes 20 years per stripe. So after you get your 8th degree, and for you to get your 9th degree, you got to wait another 20 years. So it is a long run. It's a long journey, but it's worth it every single penny, every single minute that's on the mat.
I like how you say you're still exploring and finding things out about jiu-jitsu. Do you expect that to always be the case?
Well, if you're smart, if you're intelligent, you're always going to find something. You're never going to close the door. You're never going to be in a position where you feel that you know it all. There's always somebody up there doing something different, creating some different sequences, maybe some different tricks, some different setups, different baits that you have to be aware. And the only way to do that is to be on the mat pretty much every day. The moment you take a time off, you pile up so many new moves on top, and you get out of shape, and the young guys get tougher, and they get more knowledge, and for you to come back is so much harder. So you got to stay active, and you got to stay present on the mat pretty much every day. all the time.
Pedro, with all the years of training, and it sounds like not taking time off is a big deal. So for myself, I know staying injury-free is the biggest way I could maintain my jiu-jitsu and not take any time off if I could just keep from getting injured. How do you prevent yourself from getting injured while training?
Well, I believe the most important, it is for you to follow curriculum, where the curriculum is more designed for you to understand the self-defense aspect a little bit early, on the early stage of your game, when you're more susceptible to get injuries. And I believe that when you slow down a little bit on the beginning, right in the first 6 months, 8 months to a year, when you do have a great understanding about your joints, about your body, you got to take the year as a preparation for you to really start to understand and put yourself in risk after that by start grappling, rolling, and tapping early, recognize the moves before the moves are done, not after, like everybody else. If you think about anybody who starts training jiu-jitsu and you just go for the first day and you start grappling right away, it is fun, it is great, but you're only doing what you know as a muscle memory and as an instinct. You don't have too much knowledge what can be done against you. So you just recognize moves after it's done. And that's a very good recipe for injuries. And I believe that when you follow curriculum, right now my school over here in Virginia and the association Pedro Sauer and the Gracie Academy, we merge curriculum. And I completely endorse the Gracie Combative. Yeah, the curriculum and the foundation of the Gracie Combatives, this is going to allow you to start to understand jiu-jitsu, not jiu-jitsu against jiu-jitsu. That's 100% of the schools, they do that. And when you do learn the move, you try to do the move doesn't work because your opponent, it is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, recognize the move, and he stop your move, and eventually he counterattack your moves. So it's almost like a counterproductive for you to learn jiu-jitsu that way. Well, when you do learn jiu-jitsu with a curriculum and focus on the combatives, you are not doing jiu-jitsu against jiu-jitsu, but you're doing jiu-jitsu against a bad guy. And the bad guy is, most of the time, he's going to be trying to strike in you. He's going to be trying to do some various... you can always premeditate what can be done against you because the bad guy does not have the knowledge of a jiu-jitsu scientist, a jiu-jitsu practitioner. So that means you protect yourself more against the average guy than actually try to protect yourself against a jiu-jitsu expert. So it's a complete counterproductive when you go for the expert against expert because I can stop every move that you do. You can stop every move that I do. So basically, on the end of a year, we didn't sharpen that much moves. We just get a nice workout. We just exercise hard. We got a good cardio training. We get very tough, but at the same time, we cannot explore the self-defense capabilities that jiu-jitsu, especially Grandmaster Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, that was on the game until he was 95 years old. So Grandmaster Helio got a chance to develop jiu-jitsu in a way where he was in his prime on the beginning. First, he started jiu-jitsu with, he couldn't do very well because he had a medical condition. After that, he started doing jiu-jitsu, and he started being a little bit more savvy, develop a little tricks here and there, and pretty soon he got in a good shape. And he was able to do jiu-jitsu for quite a while as a fit person, as somebody who was, was more gift guy, because the body now start to understand how to start moving. The body start to answer the questions a little bit faster. But at the same time, he's still on the mat for close to 80 years of his life, and he was able to explore his body being diminished. His body was slowing down every year, year after year, year after year. So at 95 years old, your body is no longer your best resource. It has to be your technical aspect. And he was there on the mat every single day sharing that. So I think that's the great example that we can take from Grandmaster Helio Gracie philosophy. He's persistent because he was on the mat for 80 years. And, man, if you think somebody can be on the mat for 80 years and don't know what they're doing, you probably have to check doing in your life because you probably have enough in your brain. if you can doubt that, if you can kind of bring any kind of doubt on the efficiency and the effectiveness of Jiu-Jitsu performed by Grandmaster Helio Gracie. So I believe this curriculum of the Gracie Combative, it is Grandmaster Helio Gracie curriculum. Well, the white to blue, blue to purple curriculum that we have in association, that came from Grandmaster Helio Gracie. So I'm still maybe right now half what he put on his life on the mat. I'm over 40 years on the mat. He was 80. So I'm still way to go. And as long as I'm in the mat, I will advise anybody, learn the curriculum first, understand self-defense first, because that understandable, that the mechanics that you're going to understand at early age is going to allow you to stay injury-free and understand technique to the rest of your life. You're never going to stop learning, because now you're no longer a physical guy, even though you could be a young guy, very physical, but because you're learning good technique, down the road, your foundation is going to be all surrounding good technique. So I think that's the number one recipe for you to stay free of injuries, is for you to have everybody on the mat as a scientist. Everybody that's on the mat is an intellectual mind with a body ready to practice good mechanics and start produce counterattacks. You start producing setups. You start producing moves that is no longer present, but almost in the future. So that's the recipe for you to not get hurt. Slow down your training in the beginning. Learn the curriculum that was developed by Grandmaster Helio Gracie. He knew what he was doing. Follow those guidelines, and you're not going to go wrong. That's my 2 cents on the subject of injuries.
A lot of great advice is taken there, and it sounds like focusing on the right things and having a team that you train with that isn't out to injure you, and everyone's training safely are 2 very big things for you. You talk about years and years of grappling, and decades go by, and all this knowledge that you have acquired. Certainly not all the years are created equally. Can you think back to maybe a highlight of 1 or 2 years in your jiu-jitsu career where you learned a lot more than you had been in previous years, and maybe even years after that, and what happened during those years to cause your accelerated learning?
Yeah, well, I honestly, as myself, I got to say that I'm a very spoiled individual. I got spoiled by learning jiu-jitsu from Helio Gracie, direct from him. So it's not just the jiu-jitsu that I learned, but the words of encouragement, the words of, hey, be careful of this, be careful of that, watch this, watch that, do like this, do like that, survive first. So I was pretty much very spoiled. So from my day one of jiu-jitsu, my first class was horrible. I got to honestly say that, because I just came to class and I got murdered, I got raped, I got completely demoralized by everybody in the school, including Grandmaster Helio Gracie's youngest son, Hoyler, who just walked through me like nothing. And today I go back and see, my gosh, that could be my, I could have stopped jiu-jitsu at the time. I could avoid right away jiu-jitsu at that time, and just to say, you know what, this is not for me. I'm not going to do that. And I can imagine how many people on the world goes around and visit an academy, a jiu-jitsu academy, and have this experience on the first time, and he just say, you know what, no way I'm going to come back for this. No way I'm going to pay for that. I just got demoralized. I got my arm popped. I got my thumb popped. I got my knee popped, and I still have to pay for that, and I have to come back here to see this guy here demoralize me. So we lose a lot of practitioners when you approach it just that way. I think that in my career, jiu-jitsu didn't came that easy. Took a long time for me to understand. Keep in mind that I was sharing the mat with Helio Gracie and all his sons. So it's not easy for you to walk in a school and have Rickson Gracie in front of you every night, ready to, roll over you and make sure that you don't know nothing. He's just squeezing, it was a very uncomfortable, but I survived those years. And today I can say without a doubt that if you do want to share Jiu-Jitsu with your community, if you want to have 2, 3, 4, 500 students, you got to have a curriculum set. You got to have belt testing. You got to have respect, discipline, courtesy. You have to bring something extra to the mat. Otherwise, you're just another tough Jiu-Jitsu guy on the mat sharing Jiu-Jitsu with 20 guys. And that's very discouraging for any instructor to do that, because you got to get another job. How are you going to support your family? When you're young, you can do it, but later the age catch up, you get married, life kind of presents you with more responsibilities. So I believe that you just got to make the things right from the beginning, and you're never going to regret with that.
I can totally vouch for what he's saying. I was one of those students that came in. I started in 2005, and it was just kind of the mentality of, everybody just train, everybody grapple. And we had a pretty good self-defense background, from starting under his system to begin with. But, things definitely, in the earlier stages were, a little bit more trial and error, learn the hard way kind of thing. And so, Professor and I were talking about this. It kind of develops a 1% mentality where like only 1% of the group that starts in jiu-jitsu really can stay with it and stick with it, because you have to have almost a kind of a personality trait that enjoys getting beat up. And if you don't really enjoy that, if you don't kind of get off on the feeling of losing and getting better, then you really won't stick with it. And most people don't have that. And that's what I've noticed. A lot of people have been fascinated by the jiu-jitsu. They want to learn it so bad. They see how effective it is. But, a few months in, they're achy. They're like you said, demoralized. I've had many injuries that have kept me off the mat for, pretty, extended period of times where I was just, popped a knee or, a shoulder, or, there's so many different things that can go wrong, in a grappling sport where you're literally trying to, figure out how to kill each other in a controlled way. What he's saying, I totally agree with, is that if you create a culture where you can learn the techniques without actually risking your body, then you can save a lot of people. A lot of people can learn the art and get deep into the jiu-jitsu. And then by the time they actually get to the grappling and the more hardcore side of it, they know what the limits are. They know when they're in danger. They are a lot more aware, a lot less likely to, destroy their bodies.
100%.
Looking back, was that so rough? You say you're spoiled, which is kind of funny because you definitely were in a great spot with amazing training partners and instructors, but spoiled, getting beat up every day, probably go in two different piles in most people's books. But has jiu-jitsu changed into where we're not trying to prove that it's effective and we're just trying to learn and teach it to each other?
Yeah, definitely. When I say that I'm spoiled, my partners was the best of they can be.
Yeah.
Was great master, the great son. So I was spoiled because all the time that I got caught in something, I got caught by a scientist, a guy who had a completely control of biomechanic. So he knew how to release, he knew how to apply the pressure, he knew enough pressure to put it on me. Now, when you put two guys training and they don't have this kind of control, that's when the injuries start happening. So you get a blue belt train against a white belt, and the blue belt goes and squeeze the white belt a little bit too much, twist him a little bit too much, and he goes back home in pain. And that's the recipe for you to start quitting. That's the time that when you ask your girlfriend, you ask your wife, honey, can you do a massage over here? Honey, can you do a massage over there? And eventually she's like, oh, you better think about quit this. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Those are the kind of things that eventually, that can happen. And I believe that basically when you do follow the curriculum and you slow down the beginning, you minimize those possibilities, you minimize those chances for injuries. And like Brent said, when you actually have to spar, you recognize the move that's coming. You know that's coming. You kind of feel a little bit under a control environment. So it's not two guys sparring full blast. One is a wrestling and the other one is a judo, had some kind of experience before. So when you put those kind of habits together and you put joint manipulation, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get the joint popped. And this can happen without intention, or it can happen with a little of intention. You're trying to tap your opponent. You try to really go a little bit harder because he tapped you a day before. Now you want to try to pay him back. And you have a lot of ego going on in the school, and the instructor is telling you to go hard. The instructor is telling you to, or your girlfriend's over there watching, or you have another buddy watching, you add so much things on your game that if you don't have a control environment, you're just going to lose all your guys. You're just going to lose everyone. You're not going to have nobody to train with.
Yeah, you have to treat your training partners well, and a lot of that sounds like is up to the instructor to kind of make that environment happen.
Yep, very important.
You mentioned a little bit ago that training in the mountains and the weather is great. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with training in Brazil and what you're doing as far as like a camp.
Well, I've been doing camps in Brazil since 2009 regularly. I did a couple before 2003, 2004, but in a small scale. And since 2009, twice a year we do camps in Brazil, and we go up in the mountains. We stay in a beautiful property. It's very safe. Petropolis is a town where the king of Brazil made his home base on the early settlement days. And it's only one way to get in, one way to get out. So it's very low crime. We don't have robbers, over there in Petropolis. It's very difficult. It's not a good environment for you to do any kind of bad thing, because if you do, you're going to get caught. You cannot leave the town. Like Rio de Janeiro has 50 different ways for you to leave, for you to disappear. Petropolis has one way. So the bad guys, they're going to be choosing Rio de Janeiro, not Petropolis. That's the safe area for anybody who want to visit Brazil. And of course, the training, we train pretty much twice a day. We invite all the Brazilians. They welcome. We have the biggest mat in town, and it's a great environment. We bring people. We have a laboratory pretty much every day where you can bring any question. We can talk about any subject. It's almost like a semi-private class, and you can ask any question, and we practice moves, and after that you see how it works. In one session a day, we do light grappling with the Brazilians. They come in, they always invited, and we just mix it up everybody. We do some grappling sessions. It is a good time. It's a good opportunity to be safe in Brazil. We have drivers that can drive us everywhere. We have a great restaurant over there that feeds us, so we don't have to worry about food. The food is delicious when you're there. So it's a very nice environment. It's a pleasant place, and because you're up in the mountains, you are breathing 100% oxygen day and night. After the first day, you almost feel like a Superman there. Second day, third day, a week there, your lungs are just huge, breathing oxygen day and night. And the climb is pretty mild. Even when it rains, you can wear flip-flops and shorts, and it's in a rainy day. So it is a pretty nice environment. We have a waterfall in the backyard there. That's an incredible massage. When you get hurt, that's where you're going to go. If you're sore, that's where you're going to go, is to the waterfall and just do massage as many times as you want to. You just got to walk, pretty much 20 feet, and you have the waterfall there. It's a very nice paradise.
Yeah, it's really something. Like you said, it's basically like a giant or like a group private. So basically, he starts off, you walk in, and we're just all kind of sitting around on the mats. It's just like, all right, bring your questions. So literally you get to come up with whatever problem or whatever position you're having trouble in. You get to ask the master, what would you do from here? And, as somebody who's been, training, I've been training for over 11 years now, and I feel like I'm really into jiu-jitsu, and we'll get in a really basic position that I've been in a million times for 10 years. And he'll tell us some little trick, and there'll be some mind-blowing thing that we all are just looking around each other staring like, how the hell did we not know that's all we had to do in this position is like, curl the toes, and that's, some little tiny tweak. And so it's really, really cool because you're not just going to a class and trying to absorb a bunch of information. He's applying it to exactly what you want. So it's very, very hands-on. And, like you said, the food is phenomenal. The air quality is just amazing. Everybody literally, it's like taking, 100 pounds off your chest as soon as you get there. And, by the time you leave, you literally look like a different person. Everybody, when we come back, it's like, oh man, where have you been? Because everybody looks healthy and is smiling, happy. It's just really awesome environment. Couldn't say enough about it.
You got me all motivated. This sounds like an amazing thing. Having never actually even been to Brazil myself, this would be a great way to go. It sounds like it's a very safe place to go. Amazing jiu-jitsu, of course, and the location sounds one of a kind and just like a paradise.
And I want to say one more thing about that. For tourists that have already been to Brazil before and experienced a little bit of Brazil, the Petropolis location where the camp is about an hour and a half away from Rio, from the city of Rio. And like he said, it's a completely different environment. When you're down in Rio, everything is a little bit more congested and, just like very, very wild, wild west compared to what we're used to. It feels very unstable in some ways. Like you feel like a little bit, you got to be looking around all the time. But Petropolis, where the camp is, completely different, very, very laid back. We all feel really comfortable. All the people are super nice. Of course, you're in the real part of Brazil where everybody's speaking Portuguese, and it's not very touristy. So, but that's actually a really good experience you get out of it. You don't feel like you're just getting the canned show that everyone sees when they go to Rio. You're actually getting a real life, Brazil experience. You're around, natives, locals that have been there, from the beginning, and it's it's really, really cool.
Professor Sauer, what are your goals when people come to the camp? What is your main goal for them to experience?
Well, the main goal is to them to not have any kind of bad feelings in Brazil. So if I can provide a safe environment and make sure that if you want to go out, I don't like to see guys going out alone. So I always try to find a friend to be a guide. So anywhere you go to Rio, anywhere in Brazil, if you want to go visit monuments, if you want to go visit Jesus Christ statue, we always going to send a Brazilian with you, with a translator. The guy who's going to be watching your back is going to make sure that you just make sure that you're safe. Rio de Janeiro is a pretty tough place. Is a like Brent said, it's like almost like a wild west. It's a tough environment, and the economy over there in Brazil is is hard. It's very difficult to make a living. So you find a lot of those little kids pickpocketing stuff, stealing, and when you're a local guy, you recognize those people way before. As a tourist, you don't even know where to look. So that's why I like to have local guys, because the local guys, they look at the local guys, and they kind of feel the atmosphere. They know a doorman, that's there 24/7, knows the neighborhood completely very well, and he recognizes when a strange guy comes to the neighborhood, and he goes and he split it out. He tells another doorman, tells another guy. Pretty soon the whole entire area knows that's a bad guy in the area there, and they call the police, they call the cops, they'll go after. But as a local guy, you receive this early tip. As a tourist, you just walk in there with your camera, with your phone, look into the beauty of the places, look at the girls, look at the everywhere, and completely distract. So you don't even recognize when we have bad guys around. So that's my goal, is to make sure that nobody goes there and have any kind of bad feelings or any bad moments. So I'm very kind of protective about when you're there in Brazil, you be smart, you stay in a group, because in our group of guys, somebody recognized something really early, and we're going to avoid it. If you see the guy, hey, be careful, we just avoid that. You just walk away. As a tourist, tourists always walk on the beach, in a sidewalk, in a very area that there's a lot of people. Well, as a local guy, you're always walking close to the traffic. You're always facing the cars. We're always facing the people. So you recognize things before they happen with you. You're more aware. That's what I tell everybody who goes to Rio. Petropolis, you don't have this problem. Over there in Petropolis, you can walk totally safe anywhere you want, and you won't see nothing like that. But to the moment you go to Rio, you got to be aware of that.
And it sounds like you're helping people stay aware. I mean, it's the best form of self-defense is to not go somewhere and be a target, So sitting them with a friend or a local person that knows the area sounds like a great way to keep them safe. And of course, they want to go see all the big things that Brazil is famous for and get the full effect of their trip, but and stay safe at the same time. How often do you do this, and when's the next one?
We do 2 times a year. The next one is going to be in July. We have information on the website, pedrosauer.com. You can see the banner over there on the website that tells you to reserve a spot. It tells you the dates. We offer 7 days or 10 days, or it doesn't matter, give and take. When you buy your ticket, sometimes you have an option to buy 3+ or 3-. You can find a lot cheaper tickets when you look for tickets like that. So instead you set a set date, you give a little flexibility on your travel time, and you can find a cheaper tickets. It doesn't matter if you arrive, if the camp starts on the 10, you can arrive on the 9, you can arrive on the 8, you can arrive on the 7, you can arrive on the 11, 12. Doesn't matter. We're going to have somebody on the airport with a sign who's going to pick you up, who's going to bring you right to the door, and from that moment on, you're just part of the team, part of the group. And somebody's going to watch you. Anytime you need something, somebody's is going to do something for you. We have a best guide in Brazil that's a friend of mine. His name is Bauru. That's our Brazilian. You heard about the movie Sim City? You know the movie Sim City?
Sim City? I don't think I know that one. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah,
I forgot
yeah.
Sim City. He's a guy whose name is Michael Hook. He's a guy who got run over by the car. He's a rough individual, very, very rough-looking dude. Bauru is our Brazilian Sim City guy. And he knows the whole area. He can take you anywhere. People knows Bauru anywhere he goes. So it is a good guy, and he comes to the mat. He's one of the top. He was actually the guy who introduced me to Jiu-Jitsu. The first guy who ever choked me in my life was this dude, Bauru. Very nice guy. So he comes to the camp and he helps out all the time. He does incredible barbecue. And Brent, what about the barbecue that Bauru does?
Yeah, we call it the barbecue, and it's the most amazing meal you'll have here. Definitely the best meal you'll have all year. We've actually had guys come back here and desperately try to recreate the barbecue and fall flat on their face every time, and just desperately trying to figure out where they go wrong on their barbecue. But whatever he does is special.
It's pretty cool.
Wow. It sounds like an amazing experience. Your website's a great place to go check out more information. I'll put a link to it on there. It sounds like you're having another one, like with the date set up towards the end of July.
Yep.
Got a couple questions from some listeners here. A listener named Jake wanted to know what it was like for you as a blue belt. And just, I think he's wanting to get a look at what the time was like back then and training environment and maybe, what you were doing as a blue belt.
As a blue belt, I believe I spent 2.5 to 3 years with the blue belt. And that was a time when I started to discover, and I thought that I kind of started to understand a little bit about Jiu-Jitsu. But again, nothing was working. My blue belt was efficient and effective against somebody who didn't know nothing about Jiu-Jitsu. But on the school, everybody there was an expert. It was not easy to be around Grandmaster Helio Gracie's sons. Can you imagine walking to school and you see Rickson, Helson, Horion, Hoyler, Hoyce? Those are the normal partners that we have in the school. So as a blue belt, I was suffering a lot. I still suffering, and I suffer a lot until close to black, to be honest. As a brown belt, that's when I was more aware of things, and I started putting things more together. Keep in mind that I was a 125 pounds guy too. I was very skinny, very small. When I was training, I used to train 6 hours a day, and it was a hard 6 hours a day. So my body was just skin, bone, and little muscle. I never did any kind of nutrition. I never got bigger. 125, 130 pounds. That's how much my weight was. So I was the little kid being mauled, being underneath of people. And people used to, anybody wants to have an easy train? I want to train with Pedro Sauer, because I was just a little guy. So Jiu-Jitsu for me was a lot harder than for a lot of people. Imagine Grandmaster Helio's instructor and you 130 pounds. And now his son's there every night, every day. So it's not that easy. But I'm telling you, the curriculum is the one that saved me. The self-defense by far is the one that saved me.
speaking a little bit about that, kind of not really into nutrition and doing those things. You're just trained a lot, basically. And that takes us kind of to another question that Gary had. Your experience grappling, or I guess not grappling, fighting that Mr. Utah, some huge person who really didn't expect jiu-jitsu to do what it was able to do through you. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that experience and what you were thinking while it was happening?
Well, honestly, I was not thinking too much. I was pretty comfortable. I never met the Mr. Utah before. I never got introduced to him. I never saw him. So when I walk on the mat, that's the first time that I saw him. So I don't think a lot of people, if you think about fights, if you're going to fight someone in the ring, normally you know who it is, you know his ability, you know his favorite mechanic, you know if the guy's a left or right, if the guy likes to wrestle, you kind of know a little bit about the guy. I have no idea whatsoever. I got a phone call on a Tuesday night, and I fought on a Friday morning. That's how it happened. And no preparation, nothing. Mouthpiece, groin protection, gloves, nothing. It was a bare knuckle, all brawl. And the guy was training some martial arts. He was a student from I'm not sure the name of the academy, but I think it was a Utah Black Belt Academy. And he had some wrestling experience, like every American done it. And he was a huge guy, and he was slippery. There was some Vaseline going on between me and the guy. I had Vaseline in my body, and the Vaseline ended up to be all over his body too. So basically, it was to hold like a wet fish. But I gotta say, the gi helped me out tremendously to keep his hands busy. That's number one. And to dry it out a little bit of the Vaseline, that's number two. And basically, it was, I knew, because I knew self-defense, if you notice, if you watch the fight, the whole entire match, I never got hit one time. He never touched my face one time. And I kind of knew by fact, like, man, if I'm giving up 100 pounds to this guy, I just cannot afford to get hit. One blow, can knock me out. At the same time, I punch him as many times and connect every single one, and he was still bouncing in front of me. He was not even phasing out. So different when you give up 100 pounds. It is a big challenge. You better know what to do. You better know how to apply the self-defense on the right time, because if you don't understand how to tight the fight, and you try to fight head-to-head, toe-to-toe, just take one headbutt, one elbow, one punch, one kick, one strike, and you're out of commission. You knocked out, when somebody's 100 pounds heavier than you. Today we see UFC guys that are the same size, and they punch each other like crazy. And, of course, once in a while there's a knockout here and there. But put somebody 100 pounds heavier and see how it goes, how much different it will be.
Yeah, they might fight a little smarter and really try to avoid getting hit if you're going to be getting hit by somebody who's that much stronger. How did you get selected to fight him?
I believe what happened that Royce fought UFC 1. That was right after UFC 1. And I went to a radio station. One of my students called me to go to a radio station to talk about the fight, or Royce fight. And the Mr. Utah, he was the guru of this radio station. He used to have a program, a show, where he gave advices for you to lift weights, for you to eat, for you to do conditioning. I never heard, but I believe that's how he saw me for the first time. And my understanding that he watched me walking by in the radio station, and he saw that I was too small, too skinny. And the radio station guys, they start poking him, bugging him. You think he's too small, too skinny? You think you can take him? And that's how it started. And you know how radio guys are. They pump him up and say, okay, my friend, there you go ahead. Let me see how you do it. And he mentioned, I heard that he was mentioned that I was challenging his instructor, and he felt that he should be defend his instructor I guess. That's what somebody told me. I cannot guarantee that, but that's what somebody told me, that he was defending his instructor owner or something like that. To step up to fight, instead of his instructor. I honestly, I cannot confirm that, but that's what I heard. And that's how the fight put together. And 2 days later, we fought. No rules. I was really worried about the fight because it was UFC 1. And when Helio and Gracie, that was the owner of the UFC 1, UFC at the time, he has a lot of interest. And one thing that I was representing Gracie Academy, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu style of martial arts. So there was a lot of people talk about lawsuit. Man, you have to sign this document. Man, if this guy get hurt, he's a bodybuilder. He cannot do this anymore. He can sue the Gracie Academy. It was all kind of talk like that. So basically, Helio and Gracie got involved, and they put some document together. We signed the document, and that's how we fought. It was no preparation, nothing. We just went there and we just brawled. Thank you, God, I knew self-defense. Helio Gracie just told me, Pedrinho, he used to call me Pedrinho, the only thing you cannot do it is to get hit. And I remember his words, don't get hit. The guy's 100 pounds heavier than you. Don't get hit. And that's exactly what I focused. I just tried to hold him down. He was very in a kind of rages, like, he was screaming like crazy. And I just hold him down a little bit because I kind of knew he was eventually going to gas out a little bit. And I just kind of protect myself. And when I saw the opportunity, I just took his arm, and it was a perfect hyper-extended armbar. I understand that he mentioned, I didn't tap. Well, you should be glad that I let it go. Otherwise, his arm is still, who goes after armbar. Just years of pain, and it never get better anymore. You pop your capsule, an elbow capsule, you can be in big trouble for many years to go. So that's how it was. That's how it happened at the time.
Yeah, and I urge anybody who hasn't seen that video on YouTube, check it out. There's narration over it, and it really explains what's going on very well. And it's really an amazing video showing, I guess, one of the earlier stages of jiu-jitsu in the United States.
That was a time when we came to America, and we had an obligation. Basically, we had an obligation to show everybody how jiu-jitsu work, and nobody believed it. We walking in schools. I remember Rickson Gracie in the garage teaching class for 3-4 people, and you walking down the street was a karate class with 200 people. It was kung fu class with 150 people. It was judo class with 100 people. It was like a taekwondo class with 400 people, and Rickson Gracie teaching 3 or 4 people. So we had the time was very difficult. We had to put ourselves on the line all the time. I taught class for over 4 years in a location where I had to bring boxing gloves every single night because I never knew who was the guy who was going to come in to challenge. So every night I had a boxing glove ready to fit any challenger that walked in my school. And that was a different time. That was a different breed there. I didn't speak any English, and I was 150 pounds man, where I had people walk in my school at 250 pounds, 270 pounds, 280 pounds, saying that he could kick my butt. And I said, okay, just put a boxing glove. Let's do it. And those matches was not as many was recorded. One day we might have some videos popping out because some people used to record it back at the time. But it's been, close to 30 years now. But one day there's videos going to pop out of those challenge matches and all the guys who came to visit and myself sparring with other people. It was a war. It was not easy. It was not friendly. It was a war. People wants to really hurt you. And me, myself, Rickson, Hoyle, we all got hurt back at the time. Because, when you give up 100, 150 pounds to fight someone, even though you make the guy say uncle 10 times, next day you're sore. Next day your back sore, your shoulder sore, your neck sore, and you have to do it again. So those are the early days that's why I give so much credit to Grandmaster Helio Gracie, because I know he'd done the same. And I understand that if we didn't came to America in 1990 to do that, we didn't have Jiu-Jitsu would be nothing in America. Who would be spreading Jiu-Jitsu in America if it was not the Gracies when they came to America in 1990? Who would be doing that?
Yeah, we're definitely grateful for yourself and the people back then who were in the mode of having to prove jiu-jitsu still and its effectiveness, and grateful that today, in today's modern day, people know jiu-jitsu is great, and we don't need to get in these fights, in the academy and proving that it's a effective martial art, that we can just go in and train, and I can go to work the next day, and if I can only train twice this week, that's okay. I don't need to be ready for a big challenge match when I walk in there any given day. Kind of speaking to people doing this, not a full-time basis like yourself, back when you were training all the time, 6 hours a day. If somebody is busy like myself, I don't know, maybe Brent, you can only train, 3 times a week. What could somebody do to get the most out of their training on a busy schedule?
The best thing you can do is to make sure you come to class and you follow curriculum. Even though you already seen the move, you already saw the move, you know the move, the best thing for you to do is to develop the muscle memory. And the muscle memory you develop with repetition. So even though you know the mechanic, get the move and start practice, doing slowly. If you can achieve the move with 10%, 20% of your muscle, this is going to guarantee that later down the road, 30, 40, 50 years later, when you still practice jiu-jitsu, I'm talking about in the long run, when your muscle decline, when your stamina decline, you're going to go back with the same 10, 20% again. So it's a full circle. We start jiu-jitsu, full body stamina, full body mechanic, 100% body intensity. And down the road, we lose that. We don't have that anymore when you get older. So I think for anybody who wants to stay longer on the mat, you have to think about how can you make jiu-jitsu easier for you right from the beginning. How can you utilize mechanics and try to understand the technical aspect from the early stage? The only way to do that is to follow curriculum. You got to have a curriculum. You have to have the moves, set moves down. And that's the deal that I saw with the Gracie combatives, is those moves are all designed to work against unpredictable opponent. They're designed to work against a bad guy. They're not designed to work jiu-jitsu against jiu-jitsu. And when you do jiu-jitsu against jiu-jitsu, it's just we don't flow. We don't practice because you're trying to get me in an armbar, and I escape from the armbar. You try to pass my guard, and I sweep you. You try to pass my guard, and I put in a triangle. So you never it's very difficult for you to acquire the real true confidence. You know what? I can pass people's guard. You know what? I can put people in armbar, because you cannot do it. So I think the curriculum is a very important part of jiu-jitsu. And anybody who do, you're going to experience an incredible amount of growth in your school. Not just that, with that growth, you're going to bring quality people. Quality people, I'm talking about, is people that need the most. It is one thing for you to have a school and you have a champion of wrestling, a good friend of mine, Mark Schultz. Imagine a Mark Schultz walk in your school. How much jiu-jitsu Mark Schultz need? He already an Olympic gold medal in wrestling, an unbelievable talent. He probably doesn't need that much. You just need a few things here and there. He already a nightmare. Now imagine if you have somebody who walk in your school that's a very fragile individual, skinny, that does not have a body. The body is kind of fragile at the time. Now, how are you going to show the guy jiu-jitsu? What you are going to show him? How are you going to assure the guys are not going to get hurt? One thing that Helio used to tell me, Grandmaster Helio used to tell me, is that you want to see if jiu-jitsu work? Let me see how you teach this move for a little 6-year-old little girl. Let me see how she does. If you think the move is good, let me see how she does. Pass to her your knowledge. Let me see how she can do it. If she can do it, I'll believe in this move. And that's a good way for you to think about jiu-jitsu and on the long run. So imagine you start jiu-jitsu first, young guy, And later, you end up to be older, really, really older, 60, 70, 80 years old. How are you going to make your jiu-jitsu work at 80 years old? Well, you better know the perfect technique, because if you try to count in your muscle, the muscle is no longer there. And now you have the habit. And if you have a habit, how are you going to change the habit after you've been training jiu-jitsu for 60, 70 years old, like on the mat? So it's a full circle that goes around. I believe that anybody who understands this, and you're going to learn a pure form of jiu-jitsu that's developed by Grandmaster Helio Gracie when he put street application on a martial arts. We remember Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Conde Coma brought Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to Brazil, and at the time, it was practitioners, they all trained together. Grandmaster Helio Gracie that start putting, okay, let me see how this work on the street. Let me see how this work without mats. Let me see how this work against somebody who's trying to kill me. And that's when you start to mix it up, jiu-jitsu practitioner against unpredictable guys. And that combination is the result of great jiu-jitsu.
Well, guys, it's been great talking with you guys. If you have any final thoughts, I'd love to hear them, and I'll let you guys go.
You go, Brett.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the time. Pedro has taught me so much about, how the jiu-jitsu philosophy should be, not just techniques. It's so much a mental game. And I agree with what he said. It's all about how can you get somebody that can't defend themselves to be able to defend themselves. It's different, if you're only focusing on the natural athletes that are already kind of badass. It's a totally different game when you're focusing on people that, go from one stage to the next. They go from totally unable to defend themselves, and then you see them develop all that confidence, all that, all the positives that come from just knowing that you can defend yourself and the sense of accomplishment. It's really good. And then, on the flip side, the people that are big and badass, they end up, getting handled in some cases by people much smaller and more technical than them. And it kind of can open their eyes and make them a little bit more humble. So I feel like jiu-jitsu has something to offer everyone. Everybody's missing something until they do jiu-jitsu.
That's true. I agree.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Pedro, any final words for you or thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I'd just like to say thank for you. I appreciate it. And anytime I can help with anybody to stay on the mat longer, to train safer. Jiu-Jitsu is such an incredible art, and I feel very sad when I see people have to stop Jiu-Jitsu because they get demoralized, they get hurt, they get sore. Stay on the mat safe. Find a qualified instructor. Make sure they follow curriculum, because the long run, you are going to love it. Down the road, don't worry about training too early, spar too early. Just think about, how can I sharpen my skills? I need to learn how to drive a Formula 1 car. How can I drive this car safe, without crash? You need to slow down first. Period. Learn mechanics, learn the capabilities, learn what the car can do, and start hitting the gas later, not early. Don't give a new student the key of the Formula 1 car.
There we go. That is great advice. It was a pleasure talking with both of you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Brent. Nice to talk to you guys, brother.
Well, I'd like to thank Pedro and Brent also for coming on the show. Like we said, Pedro is a legend. He's been around, so long and has so much knowledge and has trained so many, top level people. It's just an honor to have him on the show.
Yeah, it is a different time in Jiu-Jitsu now than it was back then. It's so much easier to invite a friend to class, to come in and not be a particularly tough person or all that athletic, and learn Jiu-Jitsu. That's really one of the bigger things that has changed. It's not necessarily the tough guy sport anymore. It's open. The door's open. And really, that's a great thing. That's what martial arts are for. It's not to teach the big tough guy how to win a fight. It's to teach the person who needs a little bit of help in the physical area, maybe a little bit weak or a little bit small or at some disadvantage, how to defend yourself. And that is a big thing that I think that I can't speak for all of the martial arts, but Jiu-Jitsu has made a lot of steps towards that direction. And it's really just been, I think, a couple of things. I think Jiu-Jitsu has always had that confidence, but now that people know that we're a good martial art, and we don't have to keep proving that over and over again. Jiu-Jitsu is a great martial art. It's valid. If you want to do professional combat sports, it's going to help you out. If you want to defend yourself, Jiu-Jitsu is a good tool for that. And if you want to have fun and train with your friends, the social environment is really second to none. And, look what Brent and Pedro are doing. You can go to Brazil and train with Pedro Sauer at that amazing camp that they have. Man, there's a lot of opportunities. Maybe someday, Gary, that would be a truly amazing trip if we can get down there and experience what they've got going on.
Yeah, that'd be incredible. Something that's on your jiu-jitsu bucket list. But I just think of, how long Pedro's been in the sport. He's been a legend for so long. But I think, think about how many people started because of him. Or, you were talking about back in the day and how jiu-jitsu has changed. But, I think of the two biggest influences that got me training and kept me training. Like when I first started, I really wanted to do it because I saw Royce Gracie tap out, much bigger people. I saw Pedro Sauer tap out much bigger people. And I just saw it and I was like, man, this just works so good. Look at these two guys. You'd look at who they were going against and you'd say they have no chance to do it. And so, I just think about how many people started, because of Pedro Sauer and probably still train to this day because of him. Yeah,
there's like that, you look at it like a big family tree and the bottom of it is just like very small, some humble beginnings of a person. I guess it would take two for a family tree. But then, it gets huge as the people you train are training other people, and those people in turn train others. And quality jiu-jitsu getting spread through the world. And Pedro Sauer is definitely very low on that tree, very supportive base. So it was great to have him on the show. He's definitely been on our like a target to get on the show for years. And thank you very much to our friend Brent Lillard for helping get that to happen. That was truly amazing. And thanks for Pedro for stopping by and sharing some of his story with us and really see what he's up to. And to think that any of us can go train with him if you want to get out there and experience jiu-jitsu with Pedro Sauer in Brazil. That can happen.
That's amazing. Yep. Well, we just had, the best grappler on the mat, and now we're going to go to the worst grappler on the mat. It's time for the article of the week, and this is from BJJ Self-Help, and the article is called What to Do When You're the Worst Grappler on the Mat. And, when I saw Byron pick this article, I was like, hey, I'm the expert here. I'll really be able to help people here. But it's something everybody goes through. I mean, we're probably going to start as the worst grappler on the mat, unless you come from a wrestling background or who knows, maybe even trained in your backyard watching YouTube videos, and you might know it just a little bit, so you may not be the worst. But what I always tell people, I still go back and forth to this. I tell people that being the worst on the mat is the best. Being the worst person in that room, because everybody you're going against is better than you. But then I always get to that point. It's like I always tell myself, I want grapplers that are better than me, to really push me. I want grapplers my own level that's really going to push me, really, really hard. I'm going to, I'm trying to get the tap. I'm trying not to get tapped. And then I like having grapplers that are below me where I can work different positions. And so, sometimes when I do say that being the worst person is the best in the room, not necessarily, but it's not a bad thing. I think the worst would be being the best person in the room. So being the worst grappler on the mat is really not a bad spot to be. But they just go on to the author here, goes on and talks about 4 different points. about the starter checklist on improving, how to improve your jiu-jitsu and stop being the worst grappler on the mat. And we kind of talked about it with the article of the week, and we talked about the picture Byron posted on his last day as a white belt. But the number one key to succeeding at jiu-jitsu is so simple: don't quit. Be consistent, no matter what. And you're gonna get injured. There's gonna be times where you're gonna be off the mat, or maybe there's a family tragedy and you're gonna be off the mat. But man, just keep coming. There's gonna be weeks where your work schedule or your family schedule is tough. You might not be able to make it, but try to make up for it the next week, or try to come the next week. And like I said earlier, I had a whole year probably where I trained 1 day a week, and I got better training 1 day a week. And the good part about it is I was healthy. I had a lot of time to recuperate between it, getting back on the mat. And plus I was on the mat so little that I looked forward to that 1 day like you wouldn't believe. I put everything into that one session. I had no small talk. I just got out of the mat and just started training, and stepped off I was the first one on and the last one off. I tried to milk every second I could get on that mat. But the key is do not quit.
Yeah, the second thing on the list here, and I think it's a big deal, is don't worry about being the best every night. Or, really, we can switch that on its head. Don't worry about being the worst either. It doesn't matter. That is an external goal, or an effect that doesn't really affect you at all. It's based on the other people in the room. So a lot with this article here. First off, being the worst grappler on the mat, it just goes to show you that you have a lot to learn, and basically everybody in the room could help and coach you. That's a great spot to be in. If that's you and you really feel like, man, I'm the worst one, and you look around and some people have that, like they lack that confidence, and they just feel like, man, yeah, I tap some guys, but I'm a lot bigger than these guys. I'm definitely the worst one. That attitude really doesn't help, but it doesn't matter. If you really think that everyone is technically more sound than you could learn from everybody in the room, including the younger grapplers. There are some awesome younger grapplers, and they can show you their little tricks and what they do. So I think that's a really cool spot to be in as far as learning and potential for new growth. So if you are a black belt world champion, today you're training, you would like to get better, like 0.25% better today. 1% better would be an amazing day. If you could do that, for a month, you would be the best grappler in the world. If you could go from world champion to 1% better 30 times in a row, you're up there. But for humble beginnings, worst grappler on the mat, you could have a 10% growth in your development in a day. But by just understanding, you know nothing about guard passing. Now, at the end of the day, you know a little bit about guard passing. That's a lot of guard passing that you had no knowledge of, or guard retention, or escapes from the mount. These categories, you're going to be filling them out very quickly with knowledge from your instructors and your training partners. The growth curve on this can be huge if you have the right attitude.
Just get better than you were the night before. Number 3, set small, manageable, achievable milestones for yourself. And, I like what the author says. I never let the idea that a submission is a win. He sets his own definition for a win, and success doesn't always just mean a submission. It could, especially when you're just starting, when you're the worst person on the mat, you're probably not going to be tapping a lot of people out. So if your only goal, a milestone is to get a submission, you're going to come home depressed every night. And jiu-jitsu, it's a tough sport. There's a big curve between different people. And like Byron said, they're all here to help you. They're going to make you get better. You being that worst grappler on the mat, Byron made a great point, is you've got so many more people to learn from. But the way this author talks about, milestones, it's not necessarily a tap. He gives a couple examples. Let's say you just started, and one goal can be, if I can just do the shrimping drills without wanting to puke, that's a huge win. And I remember back in the day, just even learning to shrimp. I remember just trying to learn to do a proper forward roll. And, we all grew up, rolling over our head and trying to do all that stuff. And when we're kids and we thought we were good at it. But then I'm watching these adults do forward rolls and backward rolls in jiu-jitsu class. And I felt so awkward. I remember I hated doing the rolling portion, not the rolling part, but the forward and backward rolls, because I felt so awkward doing it. I felt like I was the worst person in the class. I would come home and I would get on my living room floor and I would just practice them just to get better. But I can see too, just trying to do shrimps, it's a movement your body is not used to, and wanting to puke. So if you do feel a little bit better than that, a huge win. He talks about another goal like a month in, and you're going to get tapped out a lot of times when you first start. And he talks about a goal when you're a month in, when that 2-stripe white belt only taps me out 5 times instead of the usual 7. At that point, your defense is improving. You're getting better. Your cardio could be getting better also, because you're not just tapping because of fatigue. So those are great goals right there, and both of them have nothing to do with a tap. That's going to come down the road. But small milestones each and every day if you're just learning something. And some days you may feel like you're going backwards, and it's because maybe you're trying to work a new move. You may be really good at top control, but your instructor says, okay, today everybody's going to just work in guard, and you're going to pass guard, and then once you pass, the other guy gets on top, and you just feel like your guard is terrible, and you felt like you took a step back, but it's because you're getting out of your element again. So just set small, manageable, and achievable goals for yourself. Make it a lot easier, and you'll be much more happier in the sport.
Yeah, the fourth thing on the list here, and I urge everybody to go check out the website, bjjselfhelp.com, and look at this article. It's got a funny picture. Everybody on the mat, you've got a dozen or so students on the mat looking like they're basically dead, exhausted. One of them even face down.
I thought that was the mannequin challenge.
Yeah, you see you stand up during the mannequin challenge, I believe. But it's fun.
I like the guy that's face down.
That's pretty funny. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. Check it out, or just type in the website yourself and find it that way. But the last one on the list here is it is your journey. And that's it. That is true. You got what you got. If you're a little bit older or a little bit heavy, or you're a really busy person, or you have your family life is taking up a lot of time, that's fine. Somebody might be sick in your family or something like that. This is your journey. These steps are gonna happen. You want to continue to get better at jiu-jitsu. Make the most of it. Really, it's not fair to compare yourself to everybody else in the room. And I know that I've been training since 2002, and there are plenty of mats in the room. If I walked in there, I'd be the worst one on the mat. Does it mean I'm not any good at jiu-jitsu? No. It just means that everyone in there is better than me at jiu-jitsu. It really doesn't matter. And I remember back in the day, maybe as a blue belt or white belt, one of our students got into a bit of an altercation at a grocery store. There was a fight, and he broke it up and ended up tying the bully or whatever, the aggressor, in a bit of a knot and just holding him until the police got there. And I remember looking at the guy, I'm like, but you suck at jiu-jitsu. I was thinking, like, man, this guy got to use it in a real life situation. And, looking back, I sucked at jiu-jitsu back then, but I knew he was worse than me. And he made an easy day of this situation. This guy was trying to hurt somebody. He just put him in a little pretzel and and waited for the police to get there. And I was like, man, okay, it doesn't matter. He could have been, I don't remember if he was, but he wasn't that good at jiu-jitsu. He might have been the worst one in the room. But at the store, he was the best one. And that's when it really counted. If this guy would have broke loose and got a hold of him, if Mr. Universe would have started wailing on Pedro Sauer, or Mr. Utah would have started wailing on Pedro Sauer, it doesn't matter if Pedro Sauer is the best one or the worst one in the room when he's training. All that matters is right now. So be it the situation that self-defense pops up, you'll be happy that you have great training partners to train with, because they're going to make it seem easy.
Oh, you make a good point there, Byron. What you talk about is you don't necessarily have to be the the best one on the mat, but in a self-defense situation, you're probably the best one in the grocery store. You're probably the best one in the bar. You're probably the best one in the road rage incident. So, I like that. I never thought of it that way.
This article was a lot of fun. It was by Lucas Walker on BjJSelfHelp.com. Check out the website. It was the first time we've used that website as an article of the week. We'll probably be using it again in the future. So thanks to Lucas Walker for the article, and we'll definitely keep an eye out on there as well.
Yeah, so definitely, like Byron said, check out that website there, and also check out our social media. We do have a YouTube page. Check the YouTube page out. It's a page, actively trying to grow. We're on Facebook. If you haven't seen us on Facebook, we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Reddit. So definitely check us out on different avenues. And also, tell all your buddies about it. Let your buddies know. The best marketing we can get is by you telling your friends who train, or sometimes people don't even train, like to listen to the show, because from what I've heard from people who don't train is they like to listen to me. So it could happen.
That's true. Everybody likes to listen to Gary, and I don't know why I can't get it going on my side of things, but Gary has it going on. And then the place that it's going on is our Patreon page. We've got a list of people like Anthony, Craig, Beth, David, Brad, Mark, Sean, Rob. These people are on our Patreon and helping us keep it going. If you listen to this show and like, hey man, I would like to kick those guys $1 a show, there you go. That's the easy way to do it. You go to the Patreon website, you pledge $1 a show. After a little while, I'll send you out a gi patch as a token of support, or a token of thank you for your support. And it will continue every month. The Patreon account will charge you, if it's $1 per show, typically there's 4 shows in a month. It'll have one charge of $4 at the end of the month. Pretty simple process, and really it's made a pretty big difference in the quality of website that we've been able to have. We've had some hurdles come up, and really getting some money and having some people help us out professionally, get the website, back up and running. This Patreon thing actually was a lifesaver, and definitely the people on there supporting us have contributed greatly to keeping this podcast and website going. So thank you very much for the Patreon support, and if you're interested in helping us out and just giving us a pat on the back as well, check it out, patreon.com, or just a link.
Yep, check out the link to Patreon, and we always say that Patreon is the number one supporter of our Mat Trail, that we have every couple weeks. So, Byron, let's roll the Mat Trails, sponsored by Patreon.
This is Mat Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Mat Tales.
Mat Tales Solo Club. This Mat Tale is one of greed, adversity, the worshiping of false gods, and the power of forgiveness through jiu-jitsu. Background. We have a league of extraordinary grapplers, membership of which is a privilege but is generally open to all belts and friends of friends who are grappling and from different academies. Members to the league need to be approved by the admins. Within the league, we have a subset group called the Solo Club. The Solo Club. Solo, if it existed outside of Australia, would be described as a refreshing lemon-flavored soda that rehydrates athletes, replenishes lost electrolytes, and life force post-training. It has become a tradition in our club to enjoy a solo after a hard day of training. Membership in the Solo Club is generally only for those at our club. The minimum requirement is a blue belt. Some overseas guests are honorary members. We're not exclusive, but that being said, membership is not open to everyone, and not guaranteed even if you are a colored belt. You must be worthy. Acceptance into the club generally occurs as follows. After training or at a grading, you are offered a can of the icy cold liquid gold. Most people earn their first solo only after they survive their blue belt grading. 2 or 3 hours of in the hole as per standard grading process at our club. Some members say that getting that first solo is one of the best 3 experiences in their life. Once admitted into the club, to receive a solo at the end of training, you need to have rolled hard and be obviously sweaty and deserving. Generally, not all members get a solo every week, as there are always more members on the mat than solos available at the end of a training session. We share solos around, and normally I am responsible for distributing them because I supply them. Bruce and his background. Bruce is currently a purple belt who started training with me in 1999. Bruce and I are friends. The club where we were training originally closed down in 2002. Bruce trained somewhere else, but we stayed in touch. Luck would have it, in 2012, Bruce was back and joined my school. In fact, we usually drive to training together every week. Greed. By association with me, Bruce was quickly accepted within my school. He was already a member of the league. Being a good friend and as good as family, his membership into the solo club was fast-tracked. Where others waited a couple of years, he was in it almost straight away. There may have been some murmurs of discontent at this special treatment. However, nothing was openly said about Bruce's fast track into the solo club. Bruce was a member of the solo club for a while. He would get his solos in turn with everyone else. Time passed. There was peace and happiness until one day training was over. The solo crew was staggering to the side of the mats after a hard session. We fell against the zebra-padded walls and sat down to catch our breaths and cool down. We all wanted a solo, but we knew there was not enough to go around, and that some would be, as required, sacrificed and receive no solo for the benefit of their teammates. We also understood the process of solo distribution. It could not be rushed. Someone in charge needed to put aside the ice packs to get out the solos one by one and deliver them to those that most deserved. So we had just sat down. Before I got a chance to get the sacred ice chest, Bruce had already gotten in there and helped himself to a can of solo and was guzzling it down. What the hell was this? Conversation stopped. There was silence. What was Bruce thinking? Who did Bruce think he was? Everyone was staring at Bruce. You don't just go and take a solo. Bruce is my friend. He is like family. However, no one just takes a solo. No one. There can be no exceptions. An example had to be made. Adversity. Bruce was cast adrift. Punished. Still a member, but with his status in persona non grata. He wandered the mats post-training like a Ronin, thirsty and wandering, looking for his place. Forgiveness and the power of Jiu-Jitsu. Time went by, we reflected. Maybe we had lost our way. We had placed more importance on solos than BJJ and our team. We forgave. We welcomed Bruce back. Postscript. We saw the errors in our way, worshiping solo like a god. We took a step back and realized that what really matters are the people we train with and the acceptance of their vices and weaknesses. Furthermore, thankfully, BJJ had equipped us with the power to see past this and to forgive.
This has been Mat Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Mat Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to bjjbrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
Well, we are back from what we're going to call the solo mat tale. And, that is, it's a crazy, funny story. Instead of waiting your turn and sharing a solo, you just dig right in and grab a solo before anybody else when you're the new guy. I can see myself
you just don't know the rules, so you just go and you break some anyway.
Yeah, I can see myself doing it.
It's kind of fun to think about this as they have like a little group, a little social club within an already social environment, a social club, and then they have a subset of that as well, and they get together and basically drink sodas together after a very hard train. Like that's pretty cool. And I guess they make it a big exclusive to where not everyone's in it, so like you earn that right to get in there and have that experience. And we don't have anything like that here, and I don't think we're going to, but that's a neat thing they got going on. Forever in that area, we'll be trying to get into that club, my friends, and maybe having to sneak one.
Yeah, I'm to the point. It sounds like it's such a fun time after you're training with your buddies, and then you enjoy a solo. Like it's like I feel like jealous that I don't get to participate. Just listen to that story. It just the way he told it and everything is just like, man, I want to be in that group, and I want to after a hard training session enjoy a solo with the guys.
Yep, and it's funny that the name of it is solo, which also means by yourself, and that's kind of what happened to the guy who snuck one.
And it's a group. Yeah,
by himself.
he got ostracized. He was by himself.
Well, good news is you might be an aging grappler, feeling like you're by yourself, but next week, that's what the show is all about. We're going to be talking about the aging grappler, how to stay on the mat, any tips and tricks that our friend Gary has to give us, specializing in this category of grappling. It's going to be amazing. Isn't that right, Gary?
Oh, it's definitely going to be amazing. And I really thank you for saying I'm an aging grappler, Byron.
Well, we're all aging grapplers. I started out as a pretty young twig myself, and didn't really have to deal with long-term nagging injuries, and now I'm dealing with that all the time. So I'm also feeling the effects of time on this old body. But we'll have to talk about, no matter who you are aging, and we'll help you cope with that next week in our big Aging Grappler episode. My friends, we are located here in Wichita, Kansas, which is in the middle of the United States. If you are in the area or like to train, hit us up, bjjbrick@gmail.com, or message us on our Facebook page. We'd be happy to try to work around our schedules with yours and get some time in and train, my friends. As always, stay sweaty, my friend.
And don't forget to have a solo with your buddies after training.
And then take a shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.